everyone, welcome back to an episode of Fuckery 101. I am your host, Lori Everly, and today we are talking about the notorious, ever popular, overused fuckery called triangulation. You may or may not know this word, but I guarantee you know what it's like and you've probably participated. This is what we're talking about. Let's say in my organization or on my team, I am frustrated with Cleo. Cleo dismisses me. Cleo doesn't respond to my emails. Cleo is really competitive. We've just not gotten along, okay? So this right here is a fractured relationship, okay? It's hard for me to communicate this way, and it's also hard for her to communicate with me in this direction, okay? This relationship is broken. However, we both have a working relationship with John. So triangulating happens when Cleo pisses me off, but I don't feel comfortable going directly to her because I have a stronger relationship with John. I go to John and I say, I'm feeling really frustrated with Cleo. Let me tell you what she did. Okay, so this also brings to mind other forms of fuckery like gossip or rumoring or bad mouthing, right? Talking shit about somebody else. And that's because fuckery can quickly evolve into multiple patterns that damage trust. But for now, we'll just talk about the triangulation that happens in communication. So because I don't feel safe in this relationship here, I communicate in a relationship here with John because we have a healthier communication pattern and there's no break, there's no rupture in that. This is how triangulation works. Don't trust Cleo, I trust John. I go to John, I say what happened with Cleo, and because they have at least a better relationship than the two of us do, right? It can either be sort of a dotted line relationship, and I'm not saying dotted line the way you might think about it on an org chart. I'm just saying maybe this relationship is really strong, or maybe it's just more like casual acquaintances, but it's not ruptured like this one over here, right? So I go to John instead of going directly to Cleo with a problem, and my expectation, spoken or unspoken, is that John will then go, oh, yeah, that's not cool that Cleo did that. I'm going to tell Cleo about how she screwed things up here, okay? And we do this to maintain some sort it's And I'd say there's a 99.9% chance that you've participated in this at some point in time because it's the norm in most organizations, in most group structures, right? That based on where we have safety in relationship, I may directly go and say, John, I can't talk to her. Will you please do that for me? Okay? So I might actually say it out loud, but it gets even trickier when I just make an assumption, because of course assuming is fuckery too, right? I assume that if I go and tell John my complaint about Cleo, that he will go tell her. In actuality, if John's good at setting boundaries, he in fact won't. If John's good at holding confidences, he will not take what I've said and go to Cleo. This is an unhealthy communication problem, and we need to look at where that manifests at work. Here's another way that could look. Let's say John is the boss, and there's employee 1 and employee 2 here. John's a good guy. John tries to have equity in fairness in his relationships, and so he has a relationship with employee number 1 and a relationship with employee number 2. Let's add relationship with employee number 3. And if these are healthy relationships, communication is flowing in each direction. Let's say number 1 and 2 also have a strong relationship. and communication flows in both directions. Let's say that 2 and 3 have a strong relationship, but the relationship between 1 and 3 is broken, okay? This little area right there, that's a rupture in the relationship. So triangulation can happen all over the place in this scenario. One is if number 1 and number 3 struggle to get along, this is when you will see the phenomenon that I'm sure is familiar to all of you, where number 1 goes to boss and says, number 3 is making me late on this project. Number 3 says, I can't work with number 1. And John, or you as the boss, are left having to play good cop, bad cop, or mom and dad. And this is where you see all sorts of family dynamics show up, like where we sort of revert back to the way we behaved in our family of origin, where maybe you and your siblings were constantly in conflict or at odds with each other, and you would go to a parent to resolve your conflict for you. That might have worked when you were 5, but as adults, it's pretty problematic if we're always going to someone else to resolve our disputes, okay? And so you will see bosses, managers, leaders trying to bridge a broken triangle here. And what we really need to be doing when we're in that position of boss or leadership is repairing this relationship instead of always being in the middle and trying to mediate, okay? So that's one triangle there. Then the other one is between these employees, employee number 2, employee number 1, and employee number 3. Might have gotten a little out of the camera there, right? Where employee number 2 has a strong relationship with 3 and has a strong relationship with 1, but this is the rupture, right? And so then you have colleagues on the same team that are now putting their peer in this position of constantly moderating, mediating, making up the difference, doing this emotional labor because 1 and 3 can't figure their shit out, okay? And so all of this is indirect communication, right? Which falls into your passive-aggressive quadrant. And if we want to be more effective in our job, whatever our job is, if we want to be more effective as a communicator, if we want where we work to not feel like middle school, then you need to recognize where triangles are showing up and how to quit that really unhealthy pattern that relies on indirect communication. So your challenge is to look at where you work and the teams that you're on and realize that these unhealthy triangles can be happening at your level. They may be hierarchically with the people that report to you, and you may or may not be stepping into triangulation fuckery, and they may also be above you. We can often see this in our leadership teams, right? Where say there's the CEO, and then we've got a COO and a CFO, and there's a lot of friction here. And these two folks can't figure it out, can't get along, and so they're constantly pushing up these problems to the person at the top, or the person with more power, or the person with better relationship, and trying to get them to figure that out. And that is a great tax to your mental health, to your sanity, to your joy experienced at work, to your production, to your efficiency. Because I can promise you, for all of you who are into being efficient and productive at work, this creates a ton of noise and churn and disruption in your system. All right, look for triangulation. If you want to get rid of it, you got to name it to tame it.